please welcome to the stage Ashay Jaya Prakasan, the Associate Partner at Red Seer. Please give him a round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible? Okay, I think I'm audible. Once again, good morning, everyone. I'm extremely excited to be standing in front of you today to share a few thoughts on the e-commerce and digital economy landscape in our region. So broadly, there are two things that I want to talk about in today's session. One is to highlight 3 points why we feel the region's e-commerce landscape is very unique in a very attractive way compared to other benchmarks in the world. And the second is to highlight a period of transition that is playing out in the region. So we'll talk about 5 trends that have the potential to shape how the e-commerce landscape in our region will look in the next 3 to 5 years. So the first point I wanted to highlight on how our region is distinct is the resilience that we have shown amidst the funding winter that happened globally across the last couple of years. So if you look at the relative change in terms of funding inflow across regions, our region was the least affected. And one of the reasons for that is the more realistic valuations that we see in the region when compared to some of the other markets globally. So this is a really good sign of the really sustainable business models that we see in our region, and is a good sign for things to come in the future as well. The second unique aspect I want to talk about is the consumer in the region itself. So we do this survey to understand the relative excitement levels and the willingness to spend on different digital economy sectors. And what came out in the recent survey we did was that there was an increased intent to spend across digital economy sectors. Like if you see here, all the sectors consumers depicted an interest to spend more. And a few sectors stand out: food tech and online travel. Online travel because there's a lot of pent-up travel desire that's there in the ecosystem right now. And food tech or food delivery has become a way of life, right? So it's become very habitual and it's ingrained into the lives of people, and that's a sector also which we seeing a lot of growth in the near future. This is a very interesting slide, and I'm not sure a lot of us are cognizant of what I'm going to talk about over here. But our e-commerce market is one of the most democratic e-commerce markets in the region, and there are 3 reasons why we feel that way. One is the role of omnichannels or the traditional players in the market. So if you look at e-commerce globally, the digital natives or the horizontal marketplaces, etc., they account for the lion's share of the market, and the traditional players have typically mid-single-digit market share in the overall e-commerce market. But if you look at what is the case in our region, the omnichannels, as you see in the case of UAE, have a significant contribution that they make to the e-commerce market, representing a sizable portion of the e-commerce market in the region. That's the first thing. The second bit is in terms of the market concentration itself. So again, if you look at some of the benchmarks that we put over here, the top 3 players within e-commerce typically represent majority market share, in some cases 70%, 80% of the market share of e-commerce GMV. But if you look at our region, it's not the case. It's a more distributed market, and this is not just the case of UAE, it's also the case in Saudi and many of the other GCC markets. We've taken UAE as an example over here. This also points towards a very healthy, democratic e-commerce market in our region. The third bit is the category mix, right? So when we think about e-commerce, electronics is the first category that comes into the mind, and typically electronics has always accounted for 60%, in some cases 70% of the e-commerce GMV in many markets, and even now, right? But if you look at our region again, UAE, the third bar in this chart, electronics right now contributes around 1/3 or less of the e-commerce GMV. Fashion is a huge category, contributing almost equal as electronics, and then you have contributions from beauty, home, and other categories as well. So all in all, we feel that it's a very democratic and very attractive e-commerce market which fares well for the future growth trajectory of the region. So those were the 3 things that I wanted to highlight in terms of how our region's digital economy or e-commerce market is unique. Now moving on to 5 trends that we feel, talk about the transition period that we are in and how they will kind of shape the region's e-commerce market or the digital economy. The first point I want to talk about is the move from customer acquisition to wallet expansion. So if you look at the first chart over here, it talks about the customer acquisition within online shopping over the last 2-3 years. So a massive 2 million online shoppers have been added onto the e-com marketplaces over the last 2-3 years, to put that in context, that's about 20% of the population in UAE itself. So there's a massive customer acquisition that has already played out. And if you look at the future, I mean, we do the estimates for the future in terms of e-commerce growth. And on our numbers, 85% of the future growth for e-commerce will come from increased spend of existing shoppers, and only 15% from additional shoppers being added. And I think the leaders and the marketplaces in the region have already kind of, realized this trend and working on it with the advent of super apps and subscription loyalty programs picking up in the region. The second transition that I want to talk about is that of competition to collaboration, right? And this is also unique for our region compared to what we see in other markets. So a few examples of collaborations, not exhaustive obviously, but a few examples we have listed over here. And there are a few examples of collaboration in other markets as well, but when we are looking into this, what we felt was that the scale of collaboration happening in our region is a lot more higher compared to what we see in other markets. This also augurs well for the future of e-commerce, where there's a culture of collaboration and we add more value to the customer going forward and stop competing left, right, and center with deals and campaigns, etc. This is the third transition I want to talk about, and this is not something new. So the customer journey, gone are the days where the customer journey was linear, right? Now there are 100 different ways in which customers interact with brands, and each of those ways could be a trigger point or an influence for a purchase decision. So it becomes very important for brands to be kind of omnipresent and have a wider presence in terms of their digital media presence or channel presence. So that's important to kind of note. And the second interesting part of this slide is that digital share of ad spend has been increasing over the years, and we don't see that coming down, but it's already at around 70% contribution to the overall advertising spend. But what we feel is in a period of transition over there is the mix of digital spend. So when we ask consumers where they search for products, 5 years back, the answer would have been, say, Google or brand retailer apps, right? But now when we ask them, they say social media. They search for products on TikTok or Instagram. So there's a big change in terms of the behavior and the marketing funnel itself. And in terms of the kind of content and the kind of formats that they're looking at, so short form content, as we all are aware of, is picking up in a big way and driving decision making. And they also want to see very real, authentic, relatable content from influencers or creators. And that's what they're looking for to resonate with the brands going forward. So it's a period where the digital spend will continue to be high, but the mix and the focus in terms of channels, formats, etc., would kind of evolve. This is the fourth bit, and this is, the first chart over here talks about the intent or the willingness of consumers to explore new brands or retailers. And this is a survey that we do to understand how willing they are to explore. And what we noticed was 70% or more of consumers across categories have a very high exploratory behavior towards brands and retailers. Not to mean that loyalty is decreasing, but they're open to trying out new brands and products, right? And one of the reasons for that is the second part of this chart. So what we do is we track the NPS scores. NPS stands for Net Promoter Score, which is an indication of the relative satisfaction levels of consumers with different brands and platforms. So what we noticed was the difference between the leader and the median player in terms of NPS over the years has reduced slightly, which means that the playing field is a bit more leveled out right now. So people have really fixed their UI, UX, supply chains, etc. over the last 2-3 years, and therefore consumers possibly are spoiled for choice and are a bit more exploratory in terms of their purchase behavior. And in this context, it becomes important to solve for the friction points, and we've listed down some of the friction points across different categories below. And this leads me to my last sort of point within this transition theme. So online commerce started off as a place for deals, discounts. You had the early tech-savvy consumers coming in and trying to make the best bargain out there and get the best offers initially. And those were the kind of cohorts that came in the initial adoption phase of online commerce. And then we moved into a period of convenience and experience. And this was a period when the next wave of convenience seekers came on board the e-commerce platform. And one of the reasons for this was also the pandemic, because delivery and experience became very important. But what we see right now, we did a survey recently in the starting of 2024, and what came out was that deals and discounts has come back as the most important decision driver for consumers when they choose brands or retailers in e-commerce. And that's not a good sign, right? But The way we look at it is that we are entering another period of transition, right? The differentiators in the previous period were convenience, experience, etc., and fast delivery, so on and so forth. But in the future, the differentiation would be very different. It could be AI, it could be personalization, it could be creative commerce, a lot of different terms that we talk about, phygital, which we'll discuss in the conference today. And I think it remains to be seen who are the brands, retailers who will really jump onto this bandwagon and create innovative differentiation strategies to become the leaders of tomorrow. As part of this conference, I also would like to explore with all of you what these trends are and look forward to what's going to happen over the next 3 to 5 years. So this is a quick summary. I won't read through it. I'll just leave it on there for 10, 15 seconds. It's not exhaustive, but these are some of the 5 trends that we see playing out in the region. Thank you very much. I hope you found the session interesting. If you have any questions, feedback, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to engage in a conversation. Thank you very much.